I want to tell you something about the city law.
Okay.
All right. We'll call the March 13th, 2025 IDA board meeting to order. And I'll start as we usually do, Scott, with a roll call, just so we have attendance.
Scott Gardner, IDA staff.
Kevin Zanner, IDA counsel.
Joe Wazowski, staff.
Nicole Hastings, IDA board.
Becky Ryan, IDA board.
Mark Day at IDA board.
Doug Burwanger, IDA board.
Jim Rachowski, IDA board.
Jim Pierce, IDA staff.
Robin Marshalek, IDA staff.
Jennifer Tishka, IDA staff.
Joe Kim, EFPR auditor.
Okay. In our packet, we have the minutes from the February 13th meeting. I'll give everybody a minute to look at those. And if there's any discussion, let us know. If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve them as submitted.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
All in favor?
Aye.
On the chair for Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. We have the same situation with our separate. Is there, Robert, is there a separate financial report? I don't
You
see
should,
that.
you should have a financial report behind the minutes.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Chairman. We began the month of February with $505,852 cash in the bank and investment fund balance of $1,902,839. When you see under fees that $217,090, that was the remaining balance of the Alley Cats first 1/3 fee. They had paid us 20% of the total and made up the difference, and that was from Alley Cat. Under the other receipts, Stony Creek pilot payment, they paid in beginning of February, and then we had our normal monthly expenses, nothing out of the ordinary, a little bit of legal expense and, our telephone office expenses, regular payroll. And then under our other disbursements, we paid out the Stony Creek wind payments that had come in, and also the Orangeville Energy Storage money that had come in at the end of February, or the end of January. It came in and we paid it out in February. We ended up month with $656,926 cash on hand, and there was no change to the CDs, $1,902,839.
Any questions or discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the financial report.
So
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, I also have in my packet the investment report from 2024. And on the back is the investment guidelines. I think they're self-explanatory. Under section 2925 subdivision 6 of the Public Authorities Law, we are required to prepare this document.
Yes, and I have to post it on the Paris report.
I'll make a motion to approve the financial investment report.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hate to see those interest rates go down, but it was great.
Because your depends on what side you're on.
Yeah, this is true.
All right. Joe, are you ready to present your audit?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see everybody. In your packet, you should see something that kind of looks like this, but maybe not quite like this. This is our required communication letter from us as auditors to you as the governance body. If you want to turn to page 3, that's the status of the audit. The audit is basically done. We have a handful of loose ends to wrap up. Number one, the review and approval of the statements by this body, some legal letters that are pending, management rep letter, which should have gone for signature today sometime. And I need to update subsequent events inquiries just to determine that as of today, nothing has happened since year end. But basically, from our standpoint, we've completed our audit work. Our audit was done in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards and government auditing standards. And the objective is to obtain reasonable, not absolute assurance that the statements are free of material misstatements. An audit is an exercise in testing and sampling, so we don't audit 100% of transactions because nobody can possibly afford that. So the objective is reasonable, not absolute assurance. There was a planning meeting back in January. We went through our audit plan. We executed our audit plan. It didn't require any deviation. We will be issuing unmodified opinions or clean opinions on the financial statements of both the IDA and the BAC. Everything that we asked for, we received. Full cooperation. All records and information freely available. Management great to work with. We provide a laundry list of things that we need to see. It's a virtual electronic mountain of information that we get, and everything that we asked for, we got very timely, so that we were able to complete our work as expected. Turn to the next page. Again, the required communication. There's certain things that we need to go through with you as a board. The accounting policies are spelled out in footnote 1 to the financial statements. Management is responsible for selecting the accounting policies that are used. From our standpoint, as auditors, we need to assess that they're appropriate, that they comply with generally accepted accounting principles and industry practice and are consistently applied, and most importantly, that they're adequately disclosed, and they are. There were no changes in policies or practices this year. We noted no transactions that lacked authoritative guidance or support, so everything that we asked for and tested was supported by some kind of document. And all transactions were recognized in the appropriate period, so that there were no cutoff issues where something from 25 was reported in 24 or 23 and 24. So all transactions, significant transactions, recognized in the proper period. There are estimates in every set of financial statements. And really what management, again, is responsible for selecting the estimates out here. The key estimate is really the allowance for loan losses. That's in place. From our standpoint as auditors, we vet the assumptions that go into determining that allowance and conclude that they're reasonable, which we did. Again, no changes in the processes this year, and all of the methods to account for transactions are appropriate. Corrected and uncorrected misstatements, there were no audit adjustments. I will say that again, there were no audit adjustments. That's not the case in every environment that we go in. Not only were there no audit adjustments, but there were no adjustments that didn't raise to the threshold where we needed to pass on them. So there are no uncorrected misstatements that we noted. And I think from your standpoint, as the governance body, I know on boards that I've been part of, I like to know that the information that I'm getting throughout the year is holding up at audit time, and it is. Again, no adjustments. Internal control over financial reporting. As part of planning our audit, we pretty much consider the internal control over financial reporting and compliance with laws and other matters. We don't render an opinion on internal controls, nor do we render an opinion on compliance with laws. That's on the legal side, that's why you engage Kevin. But from our standpoint, we consider the internal controls that are in place in order to develop an audit strategy that enables us to render an opinion on the financial statements. So the control work that we do, we get an understanding of the controls that are in place, then we do walkthroughs of those key controls to ensure that what we've been told we're actually seeing in place. If there were control matters that rose to the level of a material weakness or a significant deficiency, we would be required to call those a finding and attach it to the report. And I'm happy to say there was nothing noted during the engagement. Some of the other required communications that are here, again, no significant changes to the planned audit strategy. We formulated a plan for the audit. We were able to execute that plan for the audit. Everything that was provided to us, again, on a very timely basis. No disagreements with management, absolutely no difficulties forming the audit. We were actually able to do most of what we needed to do remotely this year. Management uploaded, as I said, a veritable amount of electronic information so that we were back in our office able to get through the vast majority of what we needed to get through. And then I came out for a day and did what needed to be done here. There is a rep letter that was sent to Jim that we will get to go final. And then the last page talks about independence, and we as auditors are required to be independent. So we take steps internally to ensure ourselves that we are independent of every audit and a test plan, and we are. The financial statements, and I'm going to focus on the large financial statement, that's the IDA, because this is the IDA and the BAC all in one, and the comments that I'm making really address both organizations. There are 3 pages of the auditor's report. The only really important part is the first 2 paragraphs that the opinion. And in our opinion, that the financial statements do present fairly in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. The statement of net position is page 4. Again, this is both the IDA and the Business Assistance Corporation combined. From an overall standpoint, cash decreased about $240,000 from where it was a year ago. And that's looking at cash, the 2 buckets of cash plus certificates of deposit. It was about $3.8 million a year ago. It is about $3.6 million now. That decrease, if you go down and look at the notes receivable lines, those receivables grew by just under $400,000, and so where the cash was used for loan activity as part of what the BAC does. And receivables are broken down into 2 pieces. There's a current piece for notes receivable, which is $443,000, and that's the principal that's expected to be scheduled to be paid in 2025. And then the non-current piece is thereafter, so it's 26 and after. Embedded in that current portion of notes receivable, or in the long-term portion of notes receivable, is an allowance for doubtful loans, which is sitting at just under $80,000. Your collection history has been exceptional, and so we think an $80,000 allowance for uncollectible accounts is more than adequate. From a liability standpoint, the biggest liability that you have is some unearned revenue, and that's just future revenue that will go to the income statement over time. The second biggest liability that you have is the net pension liability, and that's a statewide liability. That's your piece of the statewide pension liability that a few years ago, the folks at the Government Accounting Standards Board issued a pronouncement that said every government and quasi-government that is part of the state pension system needs to reflect their piece of the statewide pension liability in their financial statements. That's nothing that you have any control over. Those numbers are basically provided by the state, and the assumptions that go to developing those liabilities, again, are beyond your control. So from an overall standpoint, there is net position of just under $6.4 million. That's equity. That's the, in essence, retained earnings versus $6,250,000 a year ago. So that is a change, positive change in net position or net income of $122,000 year over year. So if you turn to the next page, you can see what that consists of. There was operating revenue year over year of $535,000. That is a significant increase over where it was a year ago, and that's pretty much driven by some of the fees that were earned, Solar East and there you go. So that alone was $372,000 of the $411,000 in fees. From an expense standpoint, expenses actually declined year over year, and the largest piece was that there was the math grants that are in place. There was like the 1 year where nothing really occurred from that standpoint. So overall, operating income was a loss of about $5,700. There was interest income earned on your CDs to result in a positive bottom line of $122,000. And again, I have since I'm familiar with the numbers, I tend to speak fast. So at any time you need me to slow down, please speak up. The next page is the statement of cash flows. And this is really the document that takes and ties the first two financial statements together. And it says, okay, you have income and expense activities. How does that reflect into cash increase and decreases? So from an overall standpoint, cash increased, and I'm by $250,000. The operation had negative cash flow from operating activities, but the CDs and the interest on those generated positive cash flow. So from an overall standpoint, there was a positive change in cash. On page 7 starts the footnotes. And from page 7 to 9, those are the accounting policies. And it's really more than that, it's accounting policies and as well as some background information for the entities that are part of this reporting group. But it's everything from like how do you account for it? You're on a full accrual basis of accounting. It talks about how you report receivables and they're at realizable value. It talks about how you operate, how you recognize revenue. Then starting on page 2 is the detailed notes to the financial statements. The first subpart of that is note 2, yeah, it's on page 9, is the cash and cash equivalents. And really the important part of that footnote is in the middle of page 10. You are required to be fully collateralized, and you have your balances are fully collateralized. That is a New York State regulation. There's a footnote on grant revenue, and again, the micro enterprise assistance program was more or less paused in '23, so there was a significant amount of revenue earned on that in 2022. The footnote on notes receivable talks about the fact that the gross balance is $2.7 million. There's an $80,000 allowance for uncollectible notes, meaning that the net balance was $2.6 million, of which $440,000 is current and $2.2 million is long-term. And then on the top of page 12, there's the future payments, both the principal and interest on those note instruments until they are collected. Page 12 to 15, pension obligations. There's a lot of information in here to discuss things that you have no control over. So these are pretty much some boilerplate footnotes that are coming right out of the state pension system. You have a net pension liability on the top of page 13 of $105,000. A year ago, it was $163,000. And you could ask yourself, well, what happened? Well, nothing happened other than changes in market condition and assumptions that the actuary makes in calculating the net pension liability. It's not like you took your liability and paid it down. Again, that's a state-driven number. I'm going to skip through to the bottom of page 15 with respect to the pension. Every year, you have the opportunity to pay the pension contribution early, and so the pension system runs April to March, and you do that. So included in the statement of financial position is a prepaid expense of $10,000 related to pension contributions. On the top of page 16, there is a note on land held for investment, which there's no change year over year. Note 14 is a note on net position. Note 15, there are no outstanding bonds. Note 16 is, I'm not sure included in your package. There's a number of schedules that are available with all of the lease arrangements that are in place, and that's pretty much what Note 6 is talking about. And then Note 7, again, the Government Accounting Standards Board said that if you have a lease that goes longer than 1 year, they want it basically reflected on the balance sheet. So out here, it's really this facility that's really being used. And there's a corresponding asset that offsets that liability. Starting on page 18 is required supplementary information related to, again, the pension system. And it's what it's basically saying is, okay, well, the fiduciary net position is a percentage of the total pension asset or liability. You see from 2017 to 2024, what piece of how much coverage there is in terms of assets to liabilities, fiduciary liabilities. And you can see New York State does a much better system than most other states in terms of funding, making sure that their plan liabilities are funded. Go to a state like Rhode Island, and it's a significantly lower percentage than 94%. Page 19, another required supplementary schedule that just goes and says, okay, what has happened to the pension contribution over time? And back in 2016, the olden days, it was $4,300. It's now grown to almost 10 times that number in the years since. Note 20 is just some information related to the pension system. Starting on page 21. Okay. Okay, that's fine. There's basically also included in the financial statements is combining information, which takes the two and puts them together. That's really goes from 25 through.
It's included in what Jim had sent out to you guys, but it was 42 pages and I wanted to save a tree, so.
Yeah.
And then there's the lease schedules are thereafter. That was also included in that earlier email. And then the last 2 pages in the document are the report under government auditing standards. This is the yellow book report. Again, 2 pieces: internal control over financial reporting and report on compliance and other matters. This is that report that if there were control matters or compliance issues, we would raise them as findings, and there are none. That is a quick walkthrough through the financial statements. Anybody have any questions?
You saved some mileage driving back and forth with all, being able to do it electronically. You can get a little rebate on our fee. Just joking.
I hear you. I don't know, I'll take it. I'm a retired partner. So those questions are above my pay grade now.
Now he's gonna have a finding, Jim.
Yeah, like I say, we had a plan, we executed the plan. We maintain our independence, but I like working with your team. We don't always get full cooperation in every circumstance, and it's great to ask for something and get something and have it actually be what you ask for, and not have to go back and ask 10 times for something else. So.
Any further discussion?
From the citizens board then, what are some of the findings that you do find in other counties that are common?
Lots of times it has to do with internal controls. It'll have to do with, you have a small staff, okay? But the way you structured your internal controls is, and I look at it, it's kind of top down. In other words, the board on a monthly basis sees the financial information. The board approves a budget. The board sees the financial information throughout the year. Every transaction that happens, there's a check and a balance in place. Usually the findings result from something like that, where there's been a breakdown. Perhaps the control is there, but it may not necessarily be effective. And to be perfectly honest, in this environment, the number one compliance finding is oftentimes the March 31 deadline. I used to have some water authorities that absolutely struggled to meet that deadline, and we were having this meeting in May, and it just becomes an automatic compliance finding because they didn't have the target deadline. So.
Well, are we prepared to vote to approve the audit? And I should note that Tom McCormick came in at the beginning of this presentation, and he is going to participate in the vote. Do I have a motion to approve the audit?
I move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just recognize the staff and all the work that they did with the financials to ensure that we have an excellent audit report year in, year out. It's just commendable. It's just a lot less stress that we have to worry about. any issues. And at the same time, the comptroller's office is auditing us too. So we're under the microscope, and they perform like champions.
It's been nerve-wracking and I've lost so much sleep.
And it's been an absolute pleasure to work with Joe and his team at the EMPR. They do a wonderful job. They're very accommodating to us. And, good to hear.
You took the words out of my mouth. I thought the girls, the staff does an A1 job.
Thanks, Joe.
You know, according to this report, they just verified it.
I will say with respect to the Business Assistance Corporation, the report is also the same. It's an unmodified or a clean opinion. And from a numbers standpoint, since the BAC represents such a big piece of what the IDA is, my comments are pretty much the same. And again, no adjustments with respect to there either.
Any other questions of Joe? If not, we'll excuse him unless he wants to stay on and listen to all the other
That's okay.
fun we're gonna have.
That's okay.
You can always look at YouTube.
This is true.
I try and stay on YouTube whenever possible. Well, thank you, everyone. Like I
Thank
said,
you.
Thank you, Joe.
It's been, this was the third time through, and it's always a pleasure to work with you. Folks. Okay.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks, Joe.
Take care, all.
Thank you.
It's Mark George, our underwriter, for the next meetings.
Is he sunning himself up there?
He's working.
As under 2E, we have a memorandum of understanding with the Wyoming County Chamber of Commerce and Tourism for business attraction marketing. It's very brief, and I think you can review it quickly.
Yeah, that's an annual contract that we have with the chamber. The agreement hasn't changed in how many years? 5 years. But they continue to do some good work for us, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on.
If there's no further discussion, I will entertain a motion to approve the contract.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Jim, I'm going to ask you to speak to 3A.
Sure. In your board packet, there's a request from Billy Proetti from the Letchworth Valley Campground Resorts in Pike. Billy, as you know, was a project the board had approved quite some time ago. And he has asked for an extension of just the sales tax for his project. In the email, he talks a little bit about what he's going to be using the extension for. He's going to be doing some more expansion of the RV campsites and then make some improvements to the lodge where he's hoping to host a number of wedding and other group events. He's asked for a request for the exemption to be extended to March 31st of 2026.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a second.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
And again, 3B, if you would, Jim.
Yeah, very similar requests. This one from Mike Bellamy, owner of two projects that the board approved, one being the Silver Lock-In, where he finished, brought in the final 2 units for the Silver Lock-In project at the lake. He had those built, and now he's asking for an exemption to finish off those 2 units with some interior improvements. And then on the sales tax exemption for Letchworth Base Camp, He's asking for an extension of that sales tax for some interior improvements and finishing the building, which, as you may remember, when he presented that project, those buildings were ready to fall down on the ground. So just a remarkable renovation that he's done over there. And he just needs a little bit more time to finish those. You'll see in his request on the agenda, the Silver Lock-in. This will be his last extension request for sales tax, and he's asking it to go just till the end of this year. And then on the Letchworth Base Camp, he's asking for a full year on that one until April 30th of 26.
Overall, it's been quite successful, hasn't it?
It's been very successful. He has about 30 rental units now at Silver Lock-in. Obviously, this is the time of year he starts ramping up activity, but he has about 30 units there. And he gets on average like $250 a night for each unit. So if you want to sleep on the deck, you know, his camp's there. If you want to sleep in a tree, you can sleep in a tent in a tree. So, anyways.
People out of there, I think that's great. That's where he gets a lot of his people.
He does. People experience their first bonfires and everything else. He says it's just amazing to
New
see.
York City.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do I hear a motion to
Yep,
approve
I'll move
the
that.
request?
Second. Second.
Oh, I missed it. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Jim, your report.
Yeah, just quickly, this week, I guess it was last week, I met with an ice cream manufacturing company that's based in Turkey. And I met them over in Arcade, and they are looking at the smaller API building over in Arcade. They have a large operation in Turkey. They want to begin making ice cream here in the United States. So he's brought in one of his contractors to look at retrofitting the building for food grade production. I identified a lot of resources for the gentleman. And it's one of those projects that I talk about this group that we work with in West Buffalo, Niagara, and our business attraction attempts. This project had a code name called Project Stretch, because one of the products they make that's very popular in Turkey is like this stretchable ice cream. It's like, I don't know.
Is it called Turkish taffy?
Yeah, it's like taffy,
Yeah.
but and he says it's wildly popular in Turkey, but it's something that he wants to introduce here in the United States as well. So that's how it's got its code name, but it will be a small operation at first with about 10 employees. And so right now he's just conducting his due diligence on the project. And I had a board meeting with Invest Buffalo Niagara this morning and talked to one of their business development guys that I'm working with on this project, and he says this guy's a real deal. So, he says, work it out until you can't take it any further, and we'll see where it goes.
Jim isn't the guy that created Chobani
He's from
yogurt
Turkey.
from Turkey.
Oh, is that right? No.
That was his brother.
Man.
You know where he's from in Turkey? Just
I do not know. I know his full name is Abdullah Basara.
Good Irish name, yeah.
Yeah. He goes by Ba. Yeah.
Close enough. They get along good in Arcade.
Nice guy. Yeah. He actually resides in Boston, New York. So went to school at UB. Very sharp guy. I think after our last board meeting, we talked about how Robin and I were going to sit down with Carol Draskow. We did that. Once we get to the Business Assistance Corporation, we'll have a little further discussion about our discussion with Carl. Scott and I sat with the Batavia Daily and did a interview for Business Outlook, and in your packet is an article that kind of popped out of all the conversation that we had with the reporter for the Batavia Daily, just kind of giving them an idea that we're not sitting on our laurels here in Wyoming County, and that we have a number of initiatives underway and pushing things forward. So I appreciate Scott's time on that as well. I had another solar company, a small one, that's taking a look at a site in Pike. The guy is relatively new. I've been on the job 2 days. What do I do? He said, I said, call the supervisor. So I hooked him up with Eric Smith, and I bumped into Eric today. He said the guy had come out and talked to the town board already. So we'll see where that goes. But obviously, this board does not do anything unless the locals are in support of these projects. It's just a small one, though. He's talking about 5 megawatts or so. The AES wind projects in both proposed for Eagle and Weatherfield, the renewable energy projects for the repower project, they're still ongoing. They're working through their state application process and review process and siting process. Nothing more new has come on our side of the equations, and to date, we still do not have any IDA application, but we anticipate down the road that we will be getting a couple of them. I'm also working with Attica Package over in Attica. It's a family-owned company that employs about 10 people currently. They are talking about trying to move their mulching operation. A lot of wood mulch is their primary product, moving it out of the village and into a site that they own in the town. So we'll continue to see where that goes. They do want to put up a couple buildings associated with the move, and would hire an additional 7 to 10 people, which would get them up around 20 people, which is pretty good. And then I've been working a little bit with Upstate Door here in Warsaw. If you've noticed down on Main Street, the building that they own across from the Quick Fill, there's been some exterior improvements to that, interior improvements to that. What their plans are is to move all the office people out of the Upstate facility on Industrial Street and move them in there, and then take the production facility and expand it and create more space. They have put in an order for a very large robotic spraying machine that will have the ability to spray doors without any human contact to the product. So we're working with them to see what can be done and whether or not it makes sense to come to the IDA for some help to make that happen. And then on the business center stuff, I always like to share with the board, since we administer the business center, what's going on with them. In your board packet is the annual report that we put together. These are all the efforts that the business center has done that have been administered by the IDA staff. The Fast Track program is one of our flagship programs through the business center. We have educated since its inception 14 years ago, over 200 graduates from the program. Our rate of success of people going through the class that started business is around 53%.
63.
53. And I think we've had about 120, she'll correct me if I'm wrong, businesses start up as a result of that program over that 14 years, which is really kind of remarkable when you think how rural and small Wyoming County is. There's a lot of entrepreneurial spirit here, and we're providing them with the wherewithal to get those ideas from the idea stage up to where they can pop open. You'll see pictures in there of some of the classes that have gone through. We do both the spring and the fall class, and the types of businesses that have gone through the program. On the top of page 7 is the fall class graduates, and ironically, those 3 people in the front row have all started businesses, which is good. That's Laura's Cakes and More. There's our friend Parker Bray over there with Ray Sabar Woodworks and his other STEM-based kits for homeschool kids. And then Olivia, who's doing a photography business. So one of the things that, the Fast Track program and what we learned over the years is there really wasn't a void being filled for technical assistance of businesses that get started on, trials and tribulations they may have and get them back on the right track to grow. So over the last few years, we've been running 2 programs to help with that, which have been very successful. One's called the Business Accelerator Academy. That program, people come in with with their business already existing, and then we help them through providing guest speakers to look at problem areas, and then as a group, they talk about proposed solutions. So that's been a very good program. You see on the bottom, page 8, those are some of the organizations that help fund that, so that we're not taking all the funds from the business center to pay for that program. And you can still see that we still have an influence from Charles Van Arsdale family, which is Bud and Margie, originally from Cast Isle, and the founding fathers of the Bank of Cast Isle are continuing to support our program, which is kind of a nice little twist. So you can see pictures of the rest of the Academy members, Accelerator Academies. And then the business mentorship program is really kind of one-on-one mentoring that we hook up businesses that are having a specific challenge. We try to hook them up with a mentor that has an area of specialty that will help them get through an issue or a problem, whether it be financial or management or marketing. So that program has been really well. And you can see there's a note on page 10 that we've had over 42 businesses enroll in that program. What it does is it catches a lot of businesses that may be struggling and go out otherwise without the help being available, which is really kind of a smart move to help save them when we can. So we have all these nice micro enterprise programs, entrepreneurship programs, and then we have lending to back it up through the business center. So we did 3 micro loans, each of those in the neighborhood of $50,000. The one from this valley is the mushroom guy. You remember him, I think. I've talked about him before. Titan Properties is the pizzeria that we helped finance Doug Tillotson on opening that up right next door to the former Meisner's pizza shop over in Main Street and Arcade or Attica. Then the Easy Bore starting the horse boarding operation in Gainesville. On the next page, a Rapid Start loan program. We offer $10,000 loans for people that need a little shot in the arm for whatever it might be. We added 3 of those during the year. Creative Foods of Warsaw, which is the LLC that owns Pisano's down here on Main Street in Warsaw. Laura's Cakes and Moors over on Main Street in Arcade. And then Build Quality LLC, which is a new startup that specializes in air reduction for new housing construction, where he has a system where you can hook up and determine when a house is constructed, where there might be some leakages as well, so that you are making the house as energy efficient as possible. He's went through one of our programs as well. The Business Center is responsible for the business attraction marketing, along with the help from the Chamber of Commerce and Tourism. We remain, the website is probably one of our premier marketing tools that we have available to us. I mentioned the Invest Buffalo Niagara. There's also a Greater Rochester Enterprise, a sister organization of Buffalo, that also helps drive project leads into the area. And the bottom of page 13 starts a list of project coded names that those folks have sent us from both the GRE and Invest Buffalo Niagara. And then we respond with available buildings or sites that we have based on the project leads. So, we've been very active trying to promote the empty buildings and things that we have here, as well as our own property that's owned by the IDA. Business Center is also responsible for the workforce development initiatives here in the county. I sit on the Workforce Development Board and have for a long time. My friend Doug Burwanger appointed me to that many years ago, and then I've been on it ever since. Our moniker, our signature program is the Glow With Your Hands event, which attract over 1,000 students every year from 30 school districts from across the region. I'm proud to say that we sponsor $1,000 with that of our money, but I'm even more proud that we actually have businesses from Wyoming County that actually set up an exhibit there and try to attract these young people to their facilities to work. So, overall, it's a really great event. We volunteer when we can, our staff, to go over and help with that. I think Jennifer was the only one that made it over there this year, and she was, you could find her at the food line. She's one of the
The
cafeteria
lunch
workers.
ladies.
Lunch lady.
Feeding those kids. Keeping them happy.
And the last area of responsibility for the business center is improving environmentally challenged development sites. You've heard me talk long and about the brownfield cleanup project that we worked on over at the MK site on Church Street Arcade. So there's an article about that, how we wrap that up with our EPA funding. Our goal was to get the first phase of the development and demolition done and removal of the asbestos and to get it down to ground level. We did that. We now have the property in the hands of a designated developer who now has a clock ticking on getting it into the brownfield cleanup program to finish the remediation of the petroleum and other items that still might be underground there, and then redevelop the site for what will likely be some sort of market rate housing for the community. So anyways, I just thought it'd be interesting for the board to see when we're not doing IDA work, we're doing this work.
What are they gonna call that restaurant in Attica? Everybody wants to know.
I don't know. Good question.
They've done a lot of work in there. Everybody's peering in the windows. And when are they gonna be here?
He's gonna call it something related to the rail, because the rail runs close, used to run close behind there. So it's
I'm sorry,
the railway.
it's the rail right in front of it, actually.
Yeah.
Well, it was a welding shop at one.
Yeah, the rail's in front, but the rail's in back too, right? The old one.
Yeah, there's in the rear of the building, but there was a rail that it wasn't directly in front of it.
So it's gonna be something related to railroad.
What is?
Yeah.
Well, I got something to tell the guys.
One of the ones that's.
Yeah. Peek in the windows. They've done a lot with the building, at least on the outside. It's so much better.
I know.
They gotta be brothers somewhere.
Yeah, they are. The last couple items on, or the last item on my business center report is the business center also approved a $50,000 loan for Yummy's Ice Cream Company. She purchased the building over on the corner of Genesee Street and Main over here in Warsaw, and is going to set up a manufacturing operation there and begin wholesaling much larger than she can now, her own homemade ice cream.
Nice.
So she's also planning, and Scott got more information on this, but some sort of like a Wyoming County product store there as well in the front. So it'll be a good addition to Main Street. That's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any further business to come before the meeting? This board meeting? Other business? If not, the next meeting will be April 10th, 2025. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Halftime.